right, Screaming Ospreys. Here we are. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And tonight I'm broadcasting on McDuff Lives 1 and McDuff Lives 2, as well as Facebook and Twitter. And I'm not on McDuff Lives 3 tonight because I got another strike on McDuff Lives 3. So this is why I'm trying to get my own website going so you always know where to go. A lot of times people say they haven't seen me in months, and I'm sorry. I wish there was a way that I could publicize it when they strike a channel on me, but I want everybody to know I appreciate your following me and welcome to whichever channel you are on, and especially to those of you who've been with me for a long, long time. This has has been a long fight, and we are hanging in here. And it's great to have this platform, but sometimes the the people at YouTube that make these decisions, I just think that they're way, way wrong. Tweet. Yeah, I did tweet. I tweeted out the show. But hello, Jason and Norman, Leslie, and Corky, and everyone else who's joining us. We have 20 people already, so that word has gotten around, and that's good. Um, hey, my bluebird is back here. It's a bluebird on my shoulder. Yeah. Oops, set up straight there. To remind us that spring is coming. It's on its way now. We've already turned the corner, right? Okay. So the bluebird, is a symbol of happiness and joy in springtime, and bluebirds are very, very friendly in a way. They get a place where they like it, and they stay there. Oh, she just fell over. I guess it's a she. Anyway, big old cardinal sitting up on top there, and here in the shadow is the owl. This is an owl. I got this owl in um, at the Musée d'Orsay in France when my wife and I went there for a a, a Christmas trip in 2006, just after we got married. It was one of those amazing things where you end up in Paris and you go to Montmartre, and you end up in the uh, the little restaurant with the red checkered tablecloth and the pianist there, and you walk up to the pianist and say, "Would you play La Vie en Rose?" And he gives you the nod, and you put a little something in the jar, and he plays it, and you go back and sit down together, and just one of those wonderful moments, wonderful uh, memories now. 15 years ago, 16 years ago. Um, but things like that, they stay in your mind, don't they? Well, hello everyone. It's joining us now. Carlos is here. Hello, Carlos. And what I guess I've been kind of fuming about the presence in my city. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I'm proud of Washington, D.C. And, I've spent many, many days traveling in the car or on the bus in and through Washington, D.C., going shopping with my mother, going to the doctors, going to uh, take relatives around. My father liked to show the city to people when they were in town, and so I got to be fairly well uh, learned how to be a good tour guide when I was maybe 10 years old. Um, but so Washington maybe never was a perfect city of you know democratic republic values. It's always been a challenging place for the people that live there. And the history of Washington, D.C. is very, very checkered, you know, with the various problems that have been confronted. And a lot of that segregation that was kind of de facto, the blacks couldn't live in the white neighborhoods. It just didn't happen. And, so that you have that lingering segregation now. These things, that's part of the history of it, but it is a fact. History is history, and you can't, you can't change it just because you'd rather have a different narrative. That's one of the big problems we have right now is people just want to rewrite history to suit their own narrative, and we can't let them do it. We just can't let them do it. And when I say rewrite history, I mean probably most of the books we've read have been narratives as opposed to real accurate um, historical facts tied together in a logical way. No, they've been selling us things like Manifest Destiny and the unquestionable goodness of the royal family of Britain. Um, so to get to the idea of Nazis in Washington D.C. is like, oh no, we've gone back. We've gone back to the days of white supremacy. Um, And I'm not going to argue the case of, they're real Nazis or they just wear Nazi outfits. If they wear Nazi outfits, that's enough for me. They're worshiping that same mindset of blood and soil. And the hell with anybody else. It's a very, very militaristic and vicious way to look at the world. And it's not the way that we can survive as a republic. If we start thinking that way ourselves, we're going to be out there, with guns and knives going after, the neighboring gang and just destroy everything. And you gotta sense that there's people that want that to happen, that want to pull apart the foundation and the structure of our country. And I had a wonderful example of that just hit me. I've been watching Giga Om Biological. He's on Twitch, and I think as Mark Kulak said yesterday, we should watch him. So I watched him today, and he was going through with a fine tooth comb a presentation by a man. I think his name was Giordano, and he is a high-tech military, psychological, neurological, high-tech um, salesman type. And he's really, really got a wonderful sales pitch. And I mean, he doesn't, you don't think the people that are watching it are like thinking, well, this is a real presentation of facts. But I think that John or Jonathan at GigaOM was very, very perceptive at how a lot of what he's selling is snake oil, and a lot of the stuff that he's trying to convey that they can do, he's doing it by kind of nuance and hints. But as a biologist who studied this stuff, he's able to tell us that no, they can't do that. They can't get inside your brain and change your thinking or read your memory. But they want you to think that they can. And that leads to the funding of, oh yeah, we can do that. We just need a little more funding to test it out. And maybe in 5 years we'll definitely have it. We'll have it in 5 months, 5 years, no doubt. So and then he spoke of $145 billion budget going into this neuro psycho electrical warfare stuff. But the thing that really hit me was when the salesman guy And he doesn't bill himself as a salesman. That's just what I'm calling him. He's billed himself as an expert, consultant, right? And this is a 2017 presentation, so long before the present COVID. But he spoke of how you could use a acutely infective agent, bacteria or virus, that is not lethal, and release it in a couple of different places, like, and he mentioned, like maybe Houston, Seattle, Minneapolis, and do it in such a way that it's going to get a lot of publicity. And then you come out and you talk about it in the news, and people would get sick, and then other people who had some ailments that might sound like what the person that got sick sounds like might start wondering, well, maybe I've got it. And this is an intentional generation of panic among the citizens, with the ultimate result of the citizens are going to no longer trust their medical institutions. It's going to separate the population from the institutions that the government has placed there to assure them of their public health and safety. That is all a whole program that is a weapon. It's a combination of a biological agent and a psychological program. So they're talking about developing and using this type of a program with what end? To destroy the confidence of the population in their medical system. So here we are now in a situation in which a substantial minority of the population are getting very, very suspicious, if not convinced, of the bona fides of our medical institutions. Are they really on our side? Are they really trustworthy? And that sounds like, yeah, maybe somebody is running that exercise that the salesman spoke of in 2017. Maybe it's a foreign power running it against us. Or maybe it's us running it against us. And again, are there different parts of our government, our institutions, that one part might want to do this experiment on us to see if it works? And the other part might want to do this on us to make sure that it works, to actually destroy our nation. The Nazi mentality is complete service to the state. And this is why the Nazi doctors were so amenable to eugenics and sterilization. Not to mention, mass murder. Because Nazism is about purification, It's about getting rid of uh, bloodlines, or in modern terms, maybe genes that you have scientifically determined are going to dilute your future generations into some type of a mongrel that won't be as powerful and righteous and good and noble and, the traditional line of nobility. We have to preserve our bloodlines. So, and that goes on, and we see that in our world. We see still the nobility marrying the nobility. We see people trying to be part of that, and the aristocratic uh, types here in the United States think of themselves in that same class. But in order to be the elites, you have to have the serfs, you have to have slaves. And that's what the Nazis were about too, was creating slaves, was to just throw people into the uranium mines and make them dig until they die. It's an old traditional imperial function and right of the emperor to use the population however he wants to. And that's what Nazism is. It's about your body belongs to the state. If they say you're going to get an injection, baby, you're going to get an injection. And you better smile and say thank you and not ask any questions, because you are a loyal Nazi. You don't want to rock the boat. You think that it's your duty to sacrifice your life if necessary for the good of the state. I saw my friend Unbetreut. Um, his real name is Werner, and he posted today about how you see this thing sticking up out of the ground at a certain place, and I thought of the obelisks that you see in cemeteries. And he said, that's not a symbol of some great phallic power or some, masculinity. What that is a symbol of is that of somebody who gave himself up to the state, who sacrificed himself to the state. And I think, when I see these obelisks in so many cemeteries, especially the military ones, you think, well, yeah, these guys they did that. They gave their lives for the state, for the idea that our country is better than any place else, and if necessary, I will sacrifice myself. And they do. And that kind of mentality is very, very useful, is it not, to the elites? Hmm. So these Ukrainian nationalists, the Azovs, the privy sector, the Bandera, Lebed, we've studied this. We've read cover to cover Christopher Simpson's book Blowback, which describes in detail how Ukrainian and other East European uh, people were brought into this country, into the United States, as sleeper agents. You know, sure, they're refugees, and we're bringing them in, out of kindness. But as Simpson's book shows, they concentrate in certain cities. For instance, Chicago. For instance, Archbishop Marcinkus, or who I think was Lithuanian, or one of those Baltic states, or perhaps Polish, but Marcinkus, and he becomes the principal of the Vatican Bank, where all the money laundering is going on. And the guy's from Cicero, Illinois, the home of Al Capone. So the connection between the Ukrainian right-wing racists, and excuse me, they are racists. Come on, you guys. You can't say they're not racist. They are. You know, you might say they're not Nazis. Okay, I won't argue that with you, but they are out overt, without any question, racists. They're white supremacists. And that's disgusting. I don't want those people in my city. I don't want them in my country. I don't want them in my White House. I don't want them in my Congress. And to see our Congress laying out the red carpet for this man who doesn't even have the decency to put on a pair of shoes and a coat and tie. That's arrogance. He's saying, I own you. I can dress however I want to. I do not respect your institution. I'm coming here to give you a great investment opportunity. Yeah, give me 50 billion, I'll give you 500 billion in the future. It's a hell of a good deal for you. You can't say no. Well, we didn't say no, did we? So who's in charge? Zelensky? Of course, he's a puppet, right? But he's a front for a very powerful force that is able to summons billions and billions of dollars out of the U.S. Congress, even though their country has no freedom of speech, no freedom of religion, no freedom of movement, no freedom of the press, nothing. So this is disaster. This is going back to Woodrow Wilson in terms of accepting the idea of white supremacy in the United States government's most hallowed, maybe even sacred institutions. It's wrong. Well, there's a lot of good stuff going on now. A lot of good stuff. Like I say, from Giga Ohm's presentations about the um, evidence and lack thereof, medically or biologically speaking, for some of the claims that are being made, and I'm being very vague here. Also, I thought, there was a short video with Benjamin Netanyahu, which I just saw on Twitter a couple hours ago. And Netanyahu described how in Israel they had made some special deal with Pfizer because they had this great diversity of citizenry, and they were all 98% were already signed up for the health monitoring system, the digital identification. So if, whatever Israeli facility you went to, they would just push a button and they'd see, oh, there's your chart, there's who you are. And so that with the facility that they have built, they became kind of, according to Netanyahu, a, uh, a kind of a big petri dish, with all the and all the people in it are like the bugs in the petri dish, and so they have used this population for guinea pig, and and Netanyahu was bragging about it. So we got this deal. But see, that tells us a lot. That plus the idea of this psychological warfare where they, would actually do something like the white powder in the envelopes after 9/11, which uh, was also mentioned on the gentleman's presentation. He mentioned it, and he said that they actually had an incident where he worked in Houston where somebody had put some of that powdered equal sugar-like stuff on a bunch of envelopes, and they had to bring in a hazmat team to check it out, but it was false. That idea of panic spreading, and people, are going to panic at some point, and then you get your chaos. And if you get your chaos, then the next step, of course, is your Napoleon, your man on the white horse that comes in and says, I'll take care of everything. Just, you know, roll up your sleeve and sign here and make sure that you get your social credits if you want to go online, which they're doing that in Australia now, in New Zealand. But I think there's a lot of hope coming from many different directions. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think, is doing amazing work. And the third thing to pile on from this week is his statement, where he said that the CIA's murder of his uncle was a coup d'etat from which this nation has never recovered, from which our democracy has never recovered. Well, yeah, our democracy has never recovered. And don't get into semantics about democratic republic, please. Just our country, our system, our constitutional way of life has never recovered. Why? Because the powers behind the scenes don't want us to see what's going on. So the other thing, I guess my week kind of started off with my making the comment that I like the idea that it's the British and Wall Street and the Atlantic connection, the Atlantic Council that is, driving what's going on in the world by NATO, using that military as a threat or a bludgeon to get the economic rewards that the existing financial system requires. But I also like the Jesuit idea that no, it's not just the British. You got to look behind that. And there's where we have learned so much in the past 4 years of studying this. I give a lot of credit to Webster Tarpley, whose work on from Diocletian, describing how Diocletian was the first and the one that set the mold for Europe in establishing the heredity of your station in life, so that if your father is a carpenter, you will be a carpenter. There's no upward mobility, right? There's no downward mobility theoretically, but you also accept the fact that, hey, I'm a carpenter. I'm always going to be a carpenter. I thought I might have some talent in the uh, areas of high art, but no, I'm here to put together tables for the empire, and build simple things because that's my station in life, and how that solidified the control of the nobles, in the next 1,000 years, so that people, even today will think, well, I'm a serf, or I'm not one of the elite. I'm not, I'm never going to be there. It's just not where God wants me. God wants me where I'm at, and I'm going to stay here and be happy. And that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But at this point, we have so much concentrated power in the hands of so few, and they use, psychological warfare against us to control us and to use fright to get what they want when they need to cull the herd, for instance. So I am very concerned that this episode of, this man from Ukraine comes to Washington, and to me, it's going back 100 years. It's going back to Woodrow Wilson and the KKK marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in their white hoods. I'm also thinking about, the dichotomy that I mentioned yesterday, about, and I hate to say this because it is a little bit, anyway, the Welfs and the Ghibellines, right? The two factions of the Middle Ages that fought. The Ghibellines were on the side of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Welfs were on the side of the Pope. And, the Pope and the Holy Roman Empire were at each other, for hundreds of years, back and forth. And, eventually, the Holy Roman Empire kind of dissolves. But it doesn't, because it's also the Habsburgs. And the Habsburgs become the the patrons of the Jesuits. So if the Habsburgs, which is, a large part of Europe, from, the Spanish uh, Habsburg part, and the Netherlands, and the German part, were all under Charles V, and then Charles V abdicated and split it up. So there was two of his sons, I think, each one got a half. Ferdinand got Germany, and I think it was Philip that got Spain. But this is all being manipulated by Ignatius Loyola and the Jesuits in 1500s, 1550s. Why are the Jesuits doing this, like splitting the empire into two? Well, the Jesuits, it's their mission to destroy Protestantism, and also to get rid of the Orthodox branch of Christianity. But their main issue, I think, in these times is control over Europe. And they did not like the way the Pope wanted to run things. And so they became, although they're supposed to be completely obedient to the Pope, I think that they just aggrandized onto themselves this power that came from their military status as being a as Napoleon said, these are not just monks; these are soldiers. This is an army, and the Jesuit order is a military order. So, with them kind of being the confessors of the Habsburgs and other royalty in Europe, you can see that they are consistently behind the scenes acting as the hidden hand. And because they are usually allied with the Holy Roman Emperor, i.e., the Habsburgs, against the Pope, they tend to want to be willing to make alliances with, say, the Ottomans or the British, the Anglicans, of course, Jews and the great financiers of the Jewish houses and the deals to finance armies. And that wealth tradition, which is the Habsburgs, then ends up, again, part of it becomes the black wealths, and they are the black nobility, the ones that are still taking that Roman imperial attitude towards the world, and then the white wealths, which is the oligarchs, the ones that we think of as the British Winston Churchill types and the Wall Street types. And there's still struggle between these two, apparently. Article I read actually identified the the Democratic Party with the white wealths and the Republican Party with the black ones, the black wealths. And traditionally, I think, if you look at the difference between the FBI, you would say, well, that's black wealths, but CIA is white wealths. And this again is a parallel to another analysis that I really like, that is Sean Ross's analysis of the vertical empire, the top-down empire, i.e., like when the Pope is in charge and he appoints the kings and the kings appoint the dukes, and then it's all, this complete pyramid, versus what he calls the horizontal rule, which is the oligarchical rule that is basically the Freemason as opposed to the Jesuit approach. But of course, then you can step back another layer and say, well, wait a minute, the Freemasons are also an invention that is very convenient to the Jesuits, even though they look like they're opposing each other, they're getting to the same ends. So is that why we have, the Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, the liberal and the conservative, both of them, wanting to put their arms around Zelensky? Because, you might use the rhetoric of brotherhood and liberty and equality and fraternity like the Freemasons do, like, the French Revolution. Or, you might say, what we really need is a good king. We need somebody that's, a really good king, like the ideal kings of old, the mythical kings. We need somebody that's going to be a good king and keep those nobles in line. So, and there's always been, in our history anyway, the three classes of the nobles and the merchant class and then the serfs. And the king traditionally should protect the common people against the middle class, the ones that are the financial manipulators that can take advantage of unsophisticated people who really are just trying to make a living on the farm doing their thing. It's completely backwards from where we're supposed to be going. You know, the Declaration of Independence was supposed to set our course. The Constitution is supposed to give us the framework of the rules that are going to allow us to fulfill our mission. And what is our mission? Our mission is the liberation of the common people from either of these two control mechanisms, the oligarchical cartel control of the British India Company, or the vertical down control of a Pharaoh, of a Hitler, of a Napoleon. And another one of the fault lines that I find, in addition to that one, is the one between the Jacobites, the followers of King James the First, Charles the First, Charles the Second, and James the Second, and the Hanoverians, George First, Second, Third, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a really big difference that still exists today. For instance, Lord Fairfax, who inherited a huge amount of what is now Virginia. Well, his title came from James II, a Jacobite, right? He didn't get his title from the Hanoverians or from the Williamites that took over and turned it over to the Hanoverians. And if you're loyal to the king that you think of as the legitimate king, the king that, has divine right, as the Jacobites felt about James II and his successors, the Prince Charlie, you feel like this is the rightful king because of the tradition and the history of everybody believes that this is the rightful king. But when James II is dethroned, and then you get William and Mary, and then immediately, after Anne, you get, Anne, of course, was never received an education. She was a perfect figurehead that the financial powers were working behind the scenes, enriching themselves at the expense of the people. And that Queen Anne, she didn't have the imperial power of a divine right queen. And this is where everything really does change, is that you might call King George your highness, but he's not like James the First. He's not like Charles the First or Second. He is not like James the Second. He does not have that imperial right, that top down, God put me on the throne and I can do what I please. The merry monarch. Yeah. James the Second, the merry monarch. He had all kinds of fun, right, at the public expense, but that was okay because God put him on the throne. Now you've got these people that you're calling the king, but I don't think there was a single king ever since William and Mary that actually had the power or even tried to have the power over Great Britain. You just go through them. And when they got a woman, well, they controlled her, like they did to Queen Anne, you know. Look at what happened to Queen Victoria. You know, I was just I'm actually going to play this. It's a Smithsonian, a little quick Smithsonian thing that you might not know this about Queen Victoria or Winston Churchill, but let me just grab this. All right, there's an ad I have to wait through, but I think it's worth looking at this. All right, here we go.
Dedicated herself to her role as queen and had a genuine concern for the welfare of her subjects. She came into contact with a young Winston Churchill, who she liked, and it was said that the pair would chew gum together. But this chewing gum had a difference. It was laced with cocaine, and this wasn't the only drug she was partial to. So, Rosemary, we have a delight of medical paraphernalia here. Can you talk us through it?
Well, in the 19th century, most people smoked opium, and this is a wonderful contraption, which is like a Victorian hookah pipe. So you would have your pellet of opium in the top there, you put water in there, then you lit here, and then
It would turn into beautiful
fumes, which you would then get your morphine opium hit.
And was it rumoured that Victoria, or perhaps her daughter Helena, would have sat there puffing on this amazing opium pipe?
No, she didn't like smoking, so she took her opium as a tincture, more delicate. The tincture, however, the opium was dissolved in 90% alcohol.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so very potent mixture then.
Very potent mixture. So she wakes, she's got period pain, she's got a headache. First thing in the morning, she has a swig of her laudanum tincture, which gives her not only a hit of opium, but also gives her a hit of alcohol first thing in the morning.
Opium, laudanum. She took chloroform during childbirth, which she said was hugely enjoyable. And she's even supposed to have written an anonymous review for a newspaper for a product called Van Mariani, which was a mixture of cocaine and alcohol. So Queen Victoria, I think by any standards, she loved her drugs.
All right, and that from the Smithsonian to get us up to date with actual Queen Victoria. So that you can see they controlled her as well. She wasn't acting as the driving force of the British Empire. No, she was under control and she was drugged. So what I'm saying here is, if you come from a tradition in which there's a real belief in a real king, a real queen, a real power that comes vested from God, and then you're faced with these fake, non-kings that are just, they have a lot of paraphernalia. I mean, they got regalia, they got, cigars, they wear kilts, they're like all kinds of entertaining. And then they get into all of the sexual stuff. But they are birds in gilded cages. Just like Lady Gaga. You see that picture of Lady Gaga she's got a gold cage all the way around her head. It's about 10 years ago. And uh, they do that just to show you that they're in control. And wasn't it interesting that Lady Gaga comes down the red carpet at the inauguration of President Biden wearing this huge dove designed, like a jewelry, a big old dove, And with that, to me, I saw that. I said, well, this means that they made a deal. They've made peace. And so whatever party she represents, and being New Orleans type, I think we know which side that is, making peace with the Trump people to have, the transition. They like to own people. They like to make puppets. This whole idea of mind control is there. They love that idea, you know. Um, Jesuits have been involved in psychological warfare. And I don't think that we can attribute the crazy things that are going on in the world today solely to the financial powers of London and Wall Street. This goes way back in church history. The resentment against the Orthodox Church, the absolute, determination of the Jesuits to rid the world of Protestantism. Now, of course, it appears that they've backed off, that everything's cool now. There's there's no nobody they won't work with, and that looks real nice. It looks ecumenical, right? Coexist. You see those bumper stickers, with the moon and the star and the cross and it says coexist spelled out in symbols. That just means, let's all stay in our tribes and keep paying tribute to the empire. No, I think it's the fault lines that we need to keep focusing on. That's what I'm kind of my theme of the week is to. By the way, did you see? I see Mark, you're here. Who's a tonic? Hi. Did you see on Twitter somebody posted something from BARDA from 2021, in which, if this is an accurate document, it actually says that the SARS-CoV-2 was created and in Wuhan in the WIV lab, and talks about Peter Daszak and how their application for the funds spells out exactly how they did it. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it authenticated yet, but when you put that together with what Netanyahu has said, and I think lots and lots of stuff is coming out. It's coming out right now. Is the intention to make us lose our faith in our institutions? Is this the day that the Illuminati card that says, lose the CDC, 14 points, you lose your turn? We may be facing a situation where half this country never gets it. They never understand that there's psyops going on. And part of that is they just don't want to let go. Everything they believe in, they don't want to let go of it. And even though, you have these Nazi symbols on their shoulders. If Chuck Schumer says it's okay, well, it's okay. Chuck Schumer, he's a professional Jew. He knows what's good, what's bad. I don't know. Was that a mean thing to say? I don't know what's right and what's wrong in terms of how far to go when I talk about these folks, but all of them are facilitating us slipping back away from our goal of a truly ecumenical melting pot, wonderful diversity country, because they're not letting us build our nation from the foundation up. They're taking all of our resources. They're giving us things that we get addicted to, and we don't have the sense of unity that comes from working together to say, hey, we can solve this problem if we work together. But no, you've got to stay in your tribe. Don't go outside of your ghetto or whatever it is. Grapevine developments in the suburbs can be just as restricting in terms of who you get to know and why would you leave? Why would you want to talk to somebody from a different part of the city? So I think we just keep on pulling apart the seams of the narrative, and there's so many people going after it from different directions that and like I think Mark, you said something very wise last night, and that is, don't don't get angry, just keep on doing the work, keep on pushing forward on revealing the truth so that we can get back to being the people that we're supposed to be, the country we're supposed to be, and develop the arts and the creativity and the beauty side of life, and not have to be dwelling all the time on the next disaster. Frank Zappa's birthday yesterday, and I played to myself one of my favorite Frank Zappas. It's called uh, Trouble. There's no way to delay that trouble coming every day. That's Frank Zappa's about the 1970s, and he saw it. What a amazing musician, and just gone too soon, like so many of them. Well, I hope this made some sense tonight. A lot of times when I do my mind fields, I feel like I'm putting things together as I speak, and sometimes it's off the cuff, sometimes it may not work too well, but I think, you know, it's the way that I can get my thoughts out to you, and you give me good feedback. So thank you very much. And tomorrow night, special occasion, drummer's going to come back on the show, and we're going to sing some of the old Christmas songs together. So um, loosen up your voice, get something soothing to drink, and we'll be doing a lot of the old standards. Santa Claus is coming to town. Oh, a little bit of White Christmas, perhaps. Standard Christmas stuff from my youth. And anyway, we hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again. Good night.